Hello, hello, good morning. How y'all doing? All right. I am so excited to moderate this very important and timely conversation on financial literacy. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to introduce our amazing panel, and we're going to get right into it. So first we have Ms. Aniesia Williams, Chief Impact and Venture Officer of DreamBloc. We also have Ms. Courtney Pettway, co-founder of KidVestors. Dr. Brandy Waters, Senior Director in Strategic Partnerships and Engagement at College Board. And Dr. Dwayne Edwards, President of Pensole Lewis College of Business and Design. Thank you all for being here. Before we dive deep into the conversation, I actually wanted to ask something more personal, and if you can quickly answer. What was the moment that you had when you were like, you know what, I need to go into financial literacy, particularly for young Black people? I'll start here.
I think the moment for me was, I come from, and again, I'm just having this bill that is on my mind right now as we think about literacy. So I came from Section 8. I came from vouchers at school. I came from all of those things. And so for me, being able to transition and move to other things, I had to understand financial literacy and what that meant to me, and then how that also could impact my family as well at the same time. So it was something that was imperative and that I had to figure out because my mom didn't know, my grandma didn't know either. So I took it upon me to find out for my family.
That's great.
Yes, for me, I made a bunch of financial mistakes. I would take the whole session if I had to list every mistake that I made. But the light bulb moment for me is when I had kids of my own and I thought about all the mistakes I made and what if I could put them in a much better position than I was. And that was really the turning point for me, is when I was pregnant with my first child.
For me, it was really something that I started to think about with my friends after we graduated college and saw that many of us were encountering heavy loads of student debt, still trying to become homeowners, and really at that point really wanted to pivot and build our own organizations and businesses. And the first thing we kept saying to each other was, I wish I had known this earlier. I wish someone had taught me this in high school. So I wanted to make sure that whatever career path that I took in education really opened up that opportunity for young students as well.
Yep. Very similar story. Mine was a lot younger, where it was out of actually necessity. I wanted certain things that I couldn't buy, so to speak. And learning from my older brothers and sister the power of actually saving money and spending money, I would always have them buy me stuff, and then I would just pocket my money, right? But no, I learned very early the power of wealth building out of necessity at a very young age.
I asked that question because for all of you, and I think this is kind of true for most Black people, the jobs and the roles that we end up in, there's a personal connection, right? And it's the solution that we're looking to find for our communities. Courtney, I'd love to expand upon your, you and your husband building KidVestors. Can you tell us about that? And what is one of the goals that you have through your organization?
Yes, so we started really in our living room. Again, we became parents and we wanted to put them in a much better situation than what we were in. And so what we wanted to do is make sure they were prepared. And so knowing everything from the fundamentals to budgeting and taxes and credit, but going beyond that to learning how to invest. Because we are all feeling the impacts of inflation. I don't know how many moms out there, every time you go to the grocery store, it seems like your money is, not covering the same amount of food that you purchased last year. Yeah. It's because when we're not investing, we're actually losing money to inflation. And so I didn't learn how to invest until I was an adult. But imagine your 6-year-old or 8-year-old or 18-year-old, starting to invest. They have time on their side. Yeah. And so what we want to do is be proactive. We don't want to be reactive like I was as an adult, trying to learn on the back end after I've made the mistakes. What if these students were prepared before they graduated high school? And so that's what we want to become. Is KidVestors is the leading financial education platform for K through 12 students, so they're prepared for real life before they graduate high school. And one of the perks is when kids go through our program, they don't just learn, but they earn and reward them with real stock in the process.
They don't just learn, they earn. And as a teenager, I would have loved to earn too.
Yes.
Right? And I think it also reduces the shame that can come when you're an adult and you feel like you're behind. But as we know in our community, we don't have the tools, right? Which is why it's so powerful what you all are doing. So you said we're doing more than learning, we're also earning. And also really quick, AV, I don't have a timer up here, it's not moving. I will go over for an hour, so you might want to keep the clock going, thank you. Aniesia, you also are in the funding part of this as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so at DreamBloc, one of the things that I wanted to make sure is that founders were in the right ecosystem. You hear a lot of times when folks are building businesses, they're like, oh, you know, I need to raise money or I need to go find this investor. And it's not about just finding random people. It's about finding your people inside of your ecosystem. And so at DreamBloc, we have Dream Wealth Camp to where we bring growth stage founders together for 2 days of programming with investors. And then we have office hours as well so that it is intentional. We can make sure that it is an environment to where they can actually meet, grow, pitch, do all of those things at the same time. But I try to make sure that I have resources there for everyone and in every sector as well when they come to camp.
And that's removing the barrier of entry, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And again, it goes back to this confidence, right? If you just provide this opportunity for folks to have this courage to step into these rooms that don't look like us,
Correct.
right? We know we can show and prove,
Yeah.
but we just got to have the courage to get ourselves into that room and feel confident with what we have. Thank you for that. Dr. Edwards, I want to ask you about your platform, eHBCU.
Yes.
And how it's equipping Black women and Black communities at large to stay ahead of a changing economy, especially as AI has been introduced.
Right.
Could you talk a bit more about that?
Yes. So first, I mean, I think we all have to understand that knowledge is currency. And the more knowledge that we are able to acquire, the greater net wealth we have an opportunity to actually achieve. And so eHBCU is an innovative partnership with 4 other HBCUs. Pensole Lewis, which is in Detroit, Delaware State, Southern University, as well as Alabama State. Our goal is to create kind of the solution, a bit of a solution of the knowledge and wealth gap, especially virtually for young Black men and women. During COVID, like HBCUs were the institutions that suffered the most due to most weren't prepared for online learning. eHBCU allows the learners to be anywhere in the world. So you could be in Mississippi and taking programming in Detroit, or you can be in Delaware and taking programming at multiple HBCUs. So being able to create a platform that you can actually program your own educational journey, that is a groundbreaking opportunity that we recognize that's important for our communities.
That's great. Thank you for that. And you mentioned COVID, the pandemic, and HBCUs having to catch up, right? To make sure that our students still have the support that they need. We've also been talking a lot about like what's happening right now, this crazy, evil, sinister bill that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But even before that, and I want to come to you, Dr. Waters, about the attacks that we saw in African American history and a lot of the work that you've been doing. Would love for you to share with the audience some of that work that you're doing at the College Board.
So that's been really the joy of my life, not only as a scholar of African American studies, but to really have the opportunity to build the first internationally available course for high school students to earn college credit in this field. It emerged at a time where we saw
Oh, wait, hold on, pause. Say that again, because y'all were a little too quiet in responding to that.
Well, you know,
You can flex.
AP African American Studies is the first internationally available course where students can earn college credit in African American Studies.
Wow.
It is a beautiful thing. And it's something that we've built because of student interest. So we saw coming out of the pandemic in our surveys that African American Studies continue to be one of the most requested new courses for us to build. So this is a course that has grown from not only 60 schools in the first pilot, but it is actually one of the fastest growing AP courses. And if you remember your experience with SAT or AP, that is not something that I would have predicted when I was a student in high school. So this course just emerged in its first year out of the pilot. It's grown from those 60 schools to 23,000 students in 4 different countries and launches broadly internationally in many more countries this fall. But getting back to your point about this, I see our other course, AP Business with Personal Finance, a new course that we're building hand in hand with African American Studies. And why is that? As students start to learn more about their history, their culture, they are learning about the literal commodification of people. They're learning about entrenched wealth gaps that have happened over generations. They're learning about systemic undermining of black businesses, but also the ways that we've overcome and thrive in spite of that. So what we've done with our next course that's coming up is really merge learning about business with personal finance skills. And Courtney, you mentioned something. Imagine that you're 18 and you already know how to build a budget. You already know how to invest. And you've already had practice in building a case study, which is the largest instructional model that we see in MBA programs. So this is something that is pulling together not only what's relevant to them from a personal and a community aspect, but also having them walk away with the tools that they need to make good decisions after high school. So we're very excited about it.
I love that you merge those together because I tell people all the time, and I do a lot of political commentary. I've worked on presidential campaigns and advocacy groups, and folks constantly ask me, how do we get through this moment? Like, what's the strategy? What's the tool? But you just made the point that I always make to other people. Our ancestors actually have laid the groundwork, which is why it's so important for us to preserve our history. And it's also why they keep attacking our history, right? Like, they don't want us to know where we came from. And this legacy, how we've been able to build black economies and black cities, right? They don't want us to know that. So, and I get real political because this time is so urgent right now.
Yeah.
But thinking about that, there is an urgency for our communities to figure out how to build wealth. The racial wealth gap continues to widen, right? Even with people talking about, oh, I get in the bag and all this. I'm like, yeah, but the racial wealth is continuing to widen. So how do you all approach this work, especially with the next generation, giving them the confidence to keep going versus to feel defeated already?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of different things. So one, like, what is actually getting the bag? Like what does that even mean? And I think in this culture of social media, there is a projection out there that getting to the bag means, the Chanel and, all of these things or whatever have you, these material things that can be gone just like that, right? But there isn't preface on getting the bag also means buying some stock. It also means, investing, taking the money that's in your savings account that is not earning any interest at all and putting them into something else. It's also, if you are, working this extra job or you have a gig on the side, like, what does a traditional Roth look like? Like, where can you start to build money and wealth in those ways as well? And then also even, for parents, like, how do you set your children up for success? Instead of the birthday parties, and I'm not saying don't have a birthday party, but what I am saying is that a 2-year-old is only going to play with those toys for however long, right? So exactly, and will not remember that, but they will remember if, hey, like, here's an Apple stock, like, you guys can contribute to this instead of buying the toys and things like that. So I think it's us also just reprogramming our mind of how we think about wealth, how we actually think about money, and the relationship that we also have with money as well, that's going to put the next generation where it is that they need to be.
Courtney, you wanted to jump in.
Oh, yes. So double click on everything you said, but that was one of the approaches we took even at KidVestors. I know growing up, there were a few voices that were speaking to financial literacy, and honestly, they were just boring. In my opinion. So I wasn't really paying attention. And so one of the reasons I love KidVestors, and I'm probably biased, is that we took a culturally relevant approach. You didn't see people that looked like me. And so that's why we have African kids, Hispanic kids, black kids, white kids, Asian kids, because they resonate when they at least see people and characters that look like them. We gamify it to make it fun. And again, they're earning real stock, putting them on that path to wealth creation. Even as a VC-backed founder, we talk about narrowing the wealth gap. You can't do that without assets. And how do you get the assets if you don't know how? Correct. And so we were having a conversation backstage. I couldn't have told you what private equity and M&As and VC and all of that stuff was 5, 6, 7 years ago. But now kids going through our program, they're going to know about that stuff. Yeah. They're going to be 10 steps ahead than what I was, making it engaging in the process, fun in the process, so they want to learn, so they want to build wealth. Yeah. Don't just play Roblox. Own Roblox, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And so that's the approach that we take.
Don't just play, own it. Right. I know that's right.
No. Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to piggyback off what you were saying. I think it was a few years ago, I think it was MSN stated that we spend $1.3 trillion on products and services, but our net worth dropped, right? And so
You said 1.3 trillion
with a T.
Yeah.
But our net worth dropped, to your earlier point. Yeah. And so when you look at those businesses that we spend money on, products and services, we are less than 5% of employment in these organizations. And so what we're doing on the EHBCU side is to provide the relevant education you need to actually be employable in those institutions, but also to make sure you understand, you don't have to stop being a consumer of those products, but to your point, can you be a creator? Can you be an owner, right? There is a platform called StockX, which is a sneakers reselling platform. It's worth $3 billion. It's worth $3 billion, where it's a bunch of kids, some of them look like us, some that don't look like us. They'll buy 3 pair of sneakers. They'll keep one on ice. They'll trade the other one and sell it to pay for all 3. They're learning math. They're learning economics through a cultural topic of things that we purchase and in some cases, unfortunately, idolize. And so what we want to do on the EHBCU platform is provide relevant education to help them understand that you can be more than just a consumer, you can be a business owner, but then also leverage that education through relevant topics in some ways to trick people into learning. Because that's, in some ways, we have to do that as well. But it's all about how do we increase the wealth gap. Reduce the wealth gap, sorry.
And I just wanted to also just say this as well. Let's just cut the check. Let's just cut the check.
Yep.
Let's not have them to imagine how can we do this. Give them the money to do. Show me through practical application how this grows, how this actually works, how these fractional shares actually works for you to be able to get in. Because the barrier of entry, believe it or not, it is shrinking, literally. You can go on the Coinbase, you have Bitcoin, you have all of these other platforms that you can actually get into now, but give them the money to do it. So let's not just theorize and talk to them to death. Show them how to do it and give them the money to be able to do that. And also, of course, for founders, I'm always going to advocate to please cut the checks for the founders.
Yes, please, as a founder,
yes.
Please.
Yes, and for education institutions as well. Don't forget about us.
Absolutely,
Okay.
right. Yes, because you guys are doing that work and you need to be funded to do
100%.
that work.
As HBCU alums in here, you should be donating to your alma mater. He didn't make the plug, but I'm going to make it for him. Dr. Waters, if you had anything on this topic before I give us a closing question.
I think what's so important is what you mentioned, the urgency, and really tapping into what that means for us and what micro step you can take to move that forward. What we're doing with AP Business with personal finance is not leaving it up to chance, not making it hard for students to find, not making it confusing for parents to understand what students are learning, but we're really putting this class into American high schools. So this is a class that will show up in your student's classroom, in your student's high school, your niece's high school, your nephew's. Our step is about making sure that our students are present in that space. So once resources like these that we've talked about become available, what is the micro step that you can take, knowing the urgency of the moment, to make sure that our students are not left behind?
Something that you mentioned, and actually all of you kind of mentioned this, you're helping the next generation, but you're not forgetting about the parents. And there's a partnership there too. And that speaks to us as a community, right? We are community people. Thinking about the Essence audience, and that, majority of people here are not students.
Yeah.
middle-aged, older women, and our friends are here. I would love for you all to leave us with an action step for the Black woman who is here and feels as though she may be behind on her own finances, right? She's thinking about, yes, got the ideas and the resources to help her children, but in her mind, she's like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm behind, and I know my white counterparts have been doing this since they're 20, and I'm 41, right? So I would love for you all to just give some final words on like what's an action step that someone could take listening.
Action step for me, and I don't know, again, the audience, if you guys are faith-based or not, but for me, when I started tithing...
Me too. Girl, me too.
I mean, when I started tithing, God shows up, one. And then number two, like, look at your circle. Who is it that is doing all the things? Who is it that has the opportunities and things like that? And my thing is like, if I'm doing good and my sister is not, then I'm not doing good. So what do we need to do as a community together in your small circle to make sure that you know the latest information, you know what the latest is going on, and things of that nature, and then breaking it down from don't leave behind your grandma, your grandpa, and things of that nature, because they may not understand all of that sophistication, and it is up to us to be able to make sure that if this Medicaid gets cut, they can be able to maximize the savings or maximize their 401k or to maximize the Social Security that they have to be able to do that as well. So get a good friend circle, ones that can actually each one teach one. Closed mouths do not get fed. But get that circle and then give that information back to your family so that, again, the cycle, we got to break it and we got to share this information.
Practical advice I would probably give is just to, I'm a direct person, sometimes you have to face the music. And so this means, where am I financially? Do I know where I am? That means, going home after we have fun, looking through those bank statements. How am I doing? Is it an income problem? Do I need to look at alternative skill sets, ask for a promotion? Is it a spending problem? Like, what is my current situation? How can I improve? Because if we don't acknowledge it first and be aware of it first, we can't change. And so get that friend circle, if you don't want to do this on your own, find that accountability partner and say, hey, this is the year we're going to improve financially. Absolutely. And that starts with knowing where you are financially. But if we just avoid it and just try to sweep it under the rug like it's not reality, we won't change. And so that would be my practical advice, is to find out where you are financially first, get that accountability and friend group to encourage you along the way, and then go from there.
Well, the first step for any change is to look in the mirror, and that's what I talk about in my book. In order to disrupt your community, you got to disrupt yourself first. So,
showing my bias as a historian, educator, become the teacher. Teach yourself, teach your friends. Yep. Don't do it alone. Make it a research project. What is the one piece of my finances that I need to understand better? Whether it's budgeting or understanding investment, but become the teacher and teach someone else.
As I said earlier, knowledge is currency. For most of you who work at a corporation, major, big, or small, there's educational funds set aside for you in your institution for you to actually receive free education. Ask your organization, can you learn on their dime, right? If you work at a small company, and maybe that's not there, create your own sole proprietorship or create your own LLC, a few $100 depending on what state you're in, so you can write off your educational journey. But if you're able to actually learn through the current organization that you're working with, be able to learn on their dime to develop your skills necessary to make yourself more valuable to either it's your next job opportunity or your next entrepreneurial venture, do that. That's one of the things that we're looking to do with EHBC, is to provide that additional education, not just for high school students, which we need to work together, but also college students, but even grown men and women who are currently already working we're not only for first generation, we're for second and third and fourth as well. But knowledge is currency, and you're never too old to learn.
That is actually a great point, because I'm an entrepreneur now, but looking back, there were so many resources, the companies that I've worked for, I didn't take advantage of, worth thousands of dollars. They don't need to know you think about leaving in 2 years.
Correct.
That's why you
Exactly.
want to take that course. But dry up every single resource in your employer match, in your 401k.
Yep.
Like, all of those things are such critical points. And this whole accountability piece, amazing. This piece about each one teach one, the tools and the resources are out there. This tithing piece. When you said that, and when you said culturally relevant teachers, I thought about Dave Ramsey. I don't like Dave Ramsey, but I am a tither, right? A person of faith, right? And so all of these steps are extremely practical, and I hope the audience feels encouraged with the resources that are available and with leaders who look like us doing this work and standing in the gap and also understanding how urgent it is right now. So I just want to thank all of you so much for your time being here. I thank all of you, and please give it for our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.